Writing equations from situations and graphs. How do you write an equation to model a linear relationship giving a graph or a description? Well, first we need to do is answer this important question. What information do you really need? And I'm referring to writing an equation. We know that all equations should be set up in this format, y equals mx plus b. These are the two items we need to have. We need to make sure that we have the slope and we have the y-intercept. If we have these two things, we can write an equation. One of the things we want to look at in this module is really looking at situations and graphs, looking in the real world and seeing what's going on and how can we model that. So we're going to take a look here at this situation. Here we have a graph, and we need to know what's happening. We can see that on the y-axis we have amount paid to a DJ, and on the x-axis we have the time in hours. Well, basically then what this graph is all about is how much per hour is it going to cost us to hire a DJ. So now that we know what we're looking for, we're going to define our two variables that we just said a moment ago we need to have to write an equation. We need to have the slope. And we know that slope is rise over run. So we're going to take a look at this graph here. And we know that it crosses right here in the corner and right there in the corner. This point being 0, 100, and this point here being 2, 250. Now, we can use the slope formula, or we can draw a triangle, which is a little bit faster. So we'll do that. And we see that there are two boxes down here, and each box is worth 1, so we know that that is worth 2. Now the rise, even though there are 3 boxes, each box is worth 50. So that means that this would translate to 150. And you can tell also because 250 take away 100 would give you 150. So that's our rise. So if we take our rise, which is 150, and we divide it by 2, we can simplify that into 75 divided by 1. Now we have to know, what does that mean? Well, basically what it's telling us is that we're going to have $75 per hour of music. That's what it's going to cost us. So then what we want to do is take a look at the y-intercept. And we can tell by looking at the graph where the y-intercept is, because it's where the graph crosses the y-axis. And again, we find out that it's 100, but what does that mean? Well, it's telling us that we need to pay $100 even to the DJ, even before we started, even before he works. So that could be maybe the cost of him bringing lights or fog machines, or we can just call it a setup cost just for the sake of discussion. Now what we're going to do is take this information and we're going to write an equation. We know our equation needs to look like this: y equals mx plus b. And what we're going to do is, in the place of the m and the b, is we're going to put down the information that we just got a moment ago. So when we go to write our equation, we would write y equals 75x plus 100. We could tell the story of this graph just by this equation. We can say that the DJ is going to cost us a $100 setup fee and $75 plus $75 an hour after that. So that kind of tells us the story. Now, how do the units displayed on the graph play a part in what's going on? Well, what it does is that those units here tells us and helps tell the story. We want to be able to tell the story, and with those, we can tell the story. That's how those units help out. Now let's take another look at a situation. This time we looked at a graph. Now let's look at a situation. Here we have the cost of 25 square yards of carpet is $650, including delivery and installation, and the cost of 40 square yards of carpet is $950. Now we're going to have to go through some steps to determine what's going on. First of all, let's talk about the story. The story involves some words, and the units that the words are using are square yards of carpet and money. So keeping those two things in mind, we're basically talking about buying some carpet. Well, we're going to follow some steps as we go through. And our first step is that we're going to find and label the two variables, the dependent and the independent variable. We know that the dependent variable is our y and our independent variable is our x. So we're going to decide what each of those represents. Well, if we read the story, which one depends on the other? Well, cost depends on how much carpet is bought. So what we're going to do is set it up that way, is that x will be the square yards of carpet and the y will be the cost of the carpet. Let me clean this up a little bit for us here. Okay, and then our second step is we're going to write our information as pairs. So we're going to look at our problem here, and we're going to notice that one pair is 25, 650, and the other pair is 40 and 950. Continuing through our steps, our next steps is to find the slope. So we're going to remember the slope formula, y minus y divided by x minus x. We're going to take these y values and we're going to substitute them into the top of the fraction. So 650 minus 950. And here will be 25 minus 40. And if we simplify that, we'll get negative 300 divided by negative 15. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 300 divided by 15 is 20. So there's 20 over 1. The question then remains, what does it mean? What does 20 over 1 mean? Well, it means that it's going to cost us $20 for 1 square yard of carpet. Now the next thing we have to do is check if it's proportional or not. The reason we want to do that in a real world problem is that tells us if there's any hidden fees, any extra costs. Now we know in the description it says it includes delivery and installation, but there's got to be a cost for delivery and installation. We're going to try and figure out what that is, and that's going to be our y-intercept. So we're going to do that by checking the proportionality of the points. So we're going to take this first point, 650, and divide it by 25. It'll go in 2 times. And then 25 goes into 150 6 times evenly. So far we know that that constant is 26. Now if this other one is 26 as well, there's no hidden fees. If there is, and if they don't match, then there is hidden fees. So 40 goes into 950 twice, leaving us 80. So far it's looking good. But 40 goes into 150 only 3 times. And it keeps on going. So we're not going to get the same number. So we know that it's not proportional. And if it's not proportional, we've got to find the y-intercept. So when we find the y-intercept, we're going to use 1 point and the slope. It's easier to choose the lower numbers for the point, and for the slope, we've already figured that part out. So using lower numbers is so we don't make as many mistakes. So y equals mx plus b. And what we're going to do is we are going to substitute into that. We're going to put the slope in the slope spot. We're going to put the x value in the x spot and the y value in the y spot. That way, when all these spots are filled and only the b is left, we'll be able to find out what the b equals. So 650 equals 20 times 25 plus b. Well, that's 650, and 20 times 25 is 500. So we ask ourselves, 500 plus what will give us 650? We know that it's 150. So we can see that that is our b amount, or what we would call our y-intercept. So what does that mean to us? Well, that 150 is going to be the cost of delivery and installation. That's what that 150 is going to represent. So when we look at this all together and go to write an equation, we've got our slope, we've got our y-intercept, and we're able to write that equation. Y equals 20x plus 150. And what that equation is telling us is there's $150 worth of delivery installation and $20 per yard of carpet, square yard of carpet, from this particular vendor. Now, in a little bit later, in a couple sections, we're going to talk about doing comparisons. But for now, this will get us through understanding. Remember, look at the entire picture, look what's happening, look at the big picture. You can do the big picture, see what's happening. It'll make it easier for you.